to our show, American Chefs. Today we have a Civil War special. We will be baking Civil War cookies that are known as chocolate chip. Our first ingredient is butter. This represents the Fugitive Slave Act. Before the Fugitive Slave Act, slaves could escape to the north. The South were very angry with this, so the act was passed so the slaves could be returned to their owners. Even if a slave escaped to the north, the South could reclaim them. The Fugitive Slave Act caused a lot of controversy among the people. The South liked the idea, but the Northerners believed this stopped them from ever being able to free slaves during the war. This helped the war intensify. Okay, so our next ingredient is brown sugar. So brown sugar represents state rights. So when asked by Tom Chamberlain, Darrell Chamberlain's little brother, the Southerners said that they were fighting for their state rights. And this is true, but honestly a lot of the Southerners just said that because they didn't know what they were fighting for. When most people think of the South, they think of like the fact that the South wanted slavery, but a lot of them just didn't know what they were fighting for and they needed something to keep them going. But they didn't make up the fact that state rights were important because the South believed that the federal government was taking over all their power. But the North wanted, and so the South weren't happy, but the North wanted the government in power. And so the South they were trying to become their own country. And the North didn't think that was right. The next ingredient is eggs, which symbolize Abraham Lincoln. When he was elected, the Southerners were worried that the Republican Party would try to ban slavery. Since the Republican Party was in power, they had to promise that they would not try to do this. In his inaugural address, Abraham Lincoln assured them that they wouldn't do this. Apprehension seems to exist among the people of the southern states that by the accession of a Republican administration, their property and their peace and personal security are to be endangered. There has never been any reasonable cause for such apprehensions. Pour this right here. Okay, our next ingredient is the vanilla. The vanilla represents John Brown. John Brown was a major cause of the Civil War. He was the first Northerner to fight against the Southerners. He and his band of followers followed Northerners into their home and murdered many people. Each death was brutal, and each battle he caused resulted in more casualties. John Brown was the cause of the Pottawatomie Massacre, which resulted in a lot of death. John was sentenced to hang after the result of his loss in Harper's Ferry. The raid of the ferry caused death on both sides. The next ingredient is baking soda. This symbolizes Uncle Tom's Cabin, a novel by Harriet Beecher Stowe. She was an abolitionist and member of the Underground Railroad. She wrote a book called Uncle Tom's Cabin that made slaves come to life as real people. Many Northerners began to protest slavery because of this. A quote from the book reads, "Treat them like dogs and you'll have dogs' works and dogs' actions. Treat them like men and you'll have men's works." Quotes like these made Northerners realize that slaves are people, no different from them. Our next ingredient is flour. The flour represents agriculture and industry. The North had a lot of industrial stuff, and the South had agriculture, and they depended on each other. Northerners owned factories and paid for work to be done. Their products were manufactured and often synthetic. They used many materials from the South to make products. The South owned farms and plantations. Slaves operated these and were not paid to work. They were mistreated and beaten if their daily work was not completed. Many materials from the South were the basis of clothing and food. Okay, so our next ingredient is the chocolate chips. So the chocolate chips symbolize slavery. This was one of the main causes of the Civil War. So most commonly, slavery determined this, helped people determine what side they were on, if they agreed with slavery or if they didn't. The Southerners relied on slaves for farming, and and they had grown up with slaves, so to them it was a normal thing. But to the North, they realized how much the South was mistreating the slaves. And so they wanted to fight for the slaves so they could have their freedom. So the reason that the chocolate chips represent slavery is because it's the most obvious thing. When you look at the Civil War, most people think of slavery, just like when you think of chocolate chip cookies, you think of chocolate chips. But even though it's the most obvious thing, there's a lot of other things hidden.
There's like nothing ever. Never. Introducing Pom balls. Fun for hours. You can balance it. You can punch it.
May cause death, cancer, anorexic disorder, hearing and hair loss, vision impairment, and damage done to your heart. Well,